It's November 11, 2024. We're back live. We're live. The Hebrew Book of Enoch. The reference page 101. The references to Metatron found in Talmud, Midrash, and Targum. In the Talmud, controversy between the Rab Edi and a heretic mean, Metatron is identified with the angel of YHUH mentioned in Exodus 23. And is said to bear the divine name YHUH. Bearing the divine name, Metatron is meant by the YHUH in God's command to Moses according to Exodus 24. Come up unto YHUH. The passage in the following, however, reveals the tendency of lessening as far as possible the importance of these facts concerning Metatron. The idea that Metatron should be worshipped is refuted. Even the view assigning to Metatron the function of intermediary between the Holy One and Israel is rejected. Although according to Exodus 23, the angel of YHUH, here Metatron, was invested with the power of refusing forgiveness of sins. He will not pardon your transgressions. Yet, this power assigned to him by the Holy One never became actual. For says, we did not accept him as intermediary leader. On the contrary, Moses prayed to the Most High that he himself would lead them, basing upon Exodus 33, if thy presence go not with us, carry us not up hence. Metatron is the heavenly scribe, who was permitted to be seated while writing down the merits of Israel. This dictum in itself shows the same tendency as of trying to lessen Metatron's importance. It seeks to explain Metatron's character of enthroned angel prince as occasioned merely by his duties as celestial scribe. Starting from this assumption, the Gemara goes further and tries to divest Metatron altogether of the distinction of being enthroned, making use of an earlier attack on Metatron's authority. Buya, having ascended to heaven, when beholding Metatron, was led to the belief that this angel prince was a second divine power. For being the cause of this misconception on the side of Lisa, Metatron was subsequently punished with 60 lashes of fire, for he ought to have stood up to prevent the false appearance. Metatron shares with the Holy One the function of instructing the school children, example those prematurely dead, as scriptural support is used. Whom will he teach knowledge, and whom will he make to understand tradition? Then that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts of the present book. The Holy One, blessed be he, occupies himself with his work in the fourth quarter of the day. During the rest of the day, when the Holy One is sitting in judgment, etc., Metatron takes his place as instructor in Torah, written and oral. The mystical traditions presupposed by the aforenamed Talmud passages especially suggest a somewhat later stage of development than that of Enoch. What shows a later time for the material used by the Talmud passages or for the traditions indirectly referred to is the strait assigned to Metatron of intermediary between the Holy One and Moses, or between the Holy One and Israel, and connected with this of celestial advocate of Israel. Metatron is here beginning to take over the specific functions of Michael, the Prince of Israel. On the whole, the traditions of at the back of the Talmud passages are most akin to those of the Masei, Merkabah collections. They are also actually paralleled in additional chapter 15 and 48b d of our book, which belong to the stage Maase Merkabah collections. Midrashic references. As the more important among the Midrashic references, the following may be noted. With the exception of the reference to Moses, the ideas and mode of expression of the Sifri passage are parallel in the section 41 to 48 of Enoch. In both cases, Metatron is represented as pointing out the wonders of heaven or future events, or as in the Sifre, the Holy Land, with his fingers. The expression used in Sifre is almost literally the same as in Enoch. Lamentations, when the Holy One, after having removed this Shekinah from the temple on account of Israel's sins, thereby making way for the destruction of the temple, was weeping for the sake of Shekinah having no longer any abode on earth. and over the calamity that had befallen its former abode, the temple. Then Metatron came, fell on his face, and said before him, Lord of the universe, I will weep, but thou shalt not weep. He answered him, If thou dost not let me weep, I will at once enter the place which thou hast not permission to enter, and will weep there. The place that Metatron has not permission to enter is, according to the same passage, indicated by the words of Jeremiah 13. But if ye will not hear it, my soul shall weep in secret places. Example, the word mistarin in this scripture passage is taken to refer to a definite celestial region. Metatron is here firstly presented as the angel of the divine presence, who does not, however, partake of the divine existence beyond the manifestation of the deity on the throne. The dictum occurring in Sifre is attributed to R, the 2nd century AD, as usually, followed by the controversial dictum attributed to Jehusu. The right reading of the passage is evidently as follows. Further, the words uttered to the Most High by Metatron, I will weep, but thou shalt not weep, depict Metatron not alone as pleader for Israel, but as taking upon himself the sorrow for Israel's sins. He is Senegor, advocate, but also, as in later Kabbalistic writings, Tanhuma Ua Efanan. When Moses is informed that the time has come that he must die, he asks successively the mountains, the rivers, the sea, etc., and various powers of heaven and earth to intercede for him with the Holy One, that he may be allowed to live. But they all refuse. He also treats Metatron to intercede for him. Metatron answers, It were of no avail, for I have heard the words behind the curtain. Pargo, thy prayer will not be answered. In the same parasa, we find Metatron again referred to in connection with Moses' death, when the Most High is sorrowing after the decease of Moses and asks, Who will henceforth intercede for Israel when they sin? Metatron falls on his face before him, saying, Lord of the universe, in his life, Moses was dying. After his death, he is also dying. A parallel to the latter passage is found in Midrash Missal of Proverbs. In the printed editions, Michael takes the place of Metatron. Metatron is represented as officiating in the celestial sanctuary, and this sanctuary as being especially connected with his name as the tabernacle of Metatron. At the time when the Holy One, blessed be he, commanded Israel to erect the tabernacle, his words implied a command also to the ministering angels that they should erect a tabernacle on high. This is the tabernacle of the youth, Miskanha Naar, whose name is Metatron, and in it he offers the spirits of the righteous to atone for Israel in the days of their exile. It is here to be noticed that Metatron is explicitly called Naar, youth, that the tabernacle of the Naar is referred to as something well known, and that Metatron is represented as having in his charge, under his authority and care, the spirits of the righteous. As a whole, this passage represents a later phase in the development of the Metatron conception. The tabernacle of Metatron is referred to in additional chapter 15 of 3 Enoch. According to one reading, Metatron is here used as appellative, with reference to the divine word or voice, saying, Let the waters under the heavens, in Genesis, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together onto one place. It is said, there are some who explain in accordance with the view, Ba'in Azai and Ba'in Zoma, the voice of the Holy One was made into a Metatron over the waters, in accordance with Psalm 29. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The passage is by commentators ad lucum interpreted as meaning, the voice of the Lord went before the waters, conducting or indirecting them to the Okeanos, the place of the lower waters. There are many variant readings of the Metatron in this passage, as may be seen from the critical apparatus of Theodore's edition of Genesis Rabbah. Besides Metatron, there are the of all being recognized as the Latin Metator, and the basis for the interpretation of Metatron as forerunner leader, one who shows the way, evidently also the basis for the interpretation by the commentators ad hoc. Other readings are a secret, a mystery, a form sometimes met with as an equivalent for our name of Metatron. The existence of so many variants shows that the original word must have been unknown to the copyists. Example, its meaning not understood by them. Thus, they tried to substitute each of them another similar looking word. Now, the most unusual word among the various readings here is evidently, which also gives the best sense. Hence, it may safely be assumed that Metator was the original word. The substitution of Metatron for Metator is easily accounted for by the similarity of the characters of both words on one hand, and the speculations of the Kabbalists on Metatron's functions and the creation of on the other. But this substitution has since from the time of Nachmanides and Eleazar of worms onwards being used as the starting point for various interpretations of Metatron. From Metator, example, when the meaning of the Latin word had again been brought into light, Nachmanides' commentary on the Pentateuch, references in the Palestinian Targum to the Deuteronomy for angels called masters of wisdom took care of Moses' soul at his death. Metatron, Uriel, Uphiel, Yepipa, Yephipia, Uphiel, Uriel. This idea is met with the legends on Moses' death and also in the traditions of his angelic teachers at the time when he received the Torah and its secrets. The Targum passage in all probability is dependent on this literature, which as has already been shown belongs to the period of Maaseh Merkabah collections. Masters of wisdom, princes of wisdom, and princes of the Torah are interchangeable terms. Metatron at this stage has taken over the functions of priest, Prince of Wisdom, Prince of Torah, originally attributed to Yephifia, Galisur, Zagni, Zagiel, and the latter are represented as companions or servants of Metatron or as names of Metatron. And 3 Enoch, the additional chapter 48d. To Genesis 5, Metatron is the translated Enoch who was taken up to heaven on account of his having led a perfect life, serving the Holy One in truth. He is called the Great Scribe. This is evidently dependent upon the Enoch Metatron traditions, possibly directly upon 3 Enoch, since it combines thus the Enoch Metatron piece, chapter 3 to 15, the functions of a scribe witness, and only perfect saint with reference to the translated Enoch. Summary of the features of the Metatron conception as presented by Talmud, Midrash, and the Palestinian Targum. Metatron is called by the name of his master, YHUH. His name is that of his master. He is the angel of Yahoo. Is or has been seated in heaven or on a throne, in contrast to the other angels who are all standing but in striking similarity the appearance of her, with the Most High seated on the throne of glory. He is the great scribe in heaven. Targum, Y to Genesis 5. The recorder of the merits of Israel is the heavenly advocate, defender, the pleader for Israel. Metatron is master of wisdom, has knowledge of the divine decrees, symbolized by the hearing behind the Pargo, Tanhuma, Pargaf, Yua, Fanman, is initiated in the divine secrets, the mysteries of the Torah, Targum, Deuteronomy 34, is the heavenly high priest officiating in the celestial sanctuary, which is referred to as the tabernacle of the Na'ar Metatron. Numbers are has in his charge the spirits of the righteous. Numbers are is the translated Enoch taken up to heaven on account of his perfection of deeds. Is serving the Holy One in truth. Targum Y to Genesis 5 was associated with Moses during his lifetime, at and after his death, as the representative of the Most High or as his messenger, as the angel who in God's stead was to lead Israel in the desert, according to one tradition, however not accepted by Moses, asked by Moses just before his death to intercede for him with the Holy One. Tanhuma shows Moses the land of Israel. Sifre takes care of Moses' soul. Targum Y, Deuteronomy 34, Tanhuma is the angel of the divine presence yet not admitted into the exclusive abode of the deity. The Mistarim example does not partake of the unmanifested deity. The instructor in heaven of the children who died before having the opportunity of being instructed in the Torah or having their instruction completed. This implies that he takes charge of the spirits above. The conceptions of Metatron in related mystical and apocalyptic literature. The Hecaloop works and Martyrs, the earliest among related mystical writings coming under consideration here, is the apocalyptic fragment preserved in Sidor Amram, Yehus Ha-Sadikim by Garrison Bain, Aser Carmela Mantua. This fragment may for the sake of convenience be referred to as Ab-Isim, example the first apocalypse of Ismael. At the end of Ismael, Metatron is represented as the head of all the heavenly household who are engaged in the incantation of the Kedusa. He is possibly also thought of as in some way or other being connected with the coming salvation and the Messianic kingdom. R. Ismael, it is narrated after having beheld all the sufferings stored up for Israel, is shown also the coming salvation and consolation, which are symbolized by David with a crown on his head, taking his seat on a throne prepared for him in the great temple in Rakia, with all the kings of the house of David in front of him, and all the kings of Israel behind him. Being seated on his throne, David begins uttering songs and hymns of praise. At the moment when David utters the then also Metatron and all his heavenly household open their mouths and say, Holy, 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 and the Hayup respond, Blessed be the glory of YHUH from his place. The simple from Kedusa attested also in Enoch. The name Metatron does not occur elsewhere in the angelic being from whom Ismael receives the disclosures as to future events is called the Prince of the Presence. He is addressed by R. Ismael as Glory of Splendors, the epithet given to Metatron in chapter 13, 15, 16 at Al, the glory of all heavens. In the second part of Ismael, the angel is named Hadarniel and carries the same names and functions. It is possible, but by no means certain, that this angel is understood as identical with the Metatron mentioned at the end of the fragment. Apism is very closely related to Enoch chapter 41-48 and evidently belongs to the same stage as our book. The only difference is that Metatron here seems to be in the process of being dissociated from the Prince of the Presence, as he is the head. There is also a hint of his being regarded as the celestial as in later writings. Towards the end of a doxology to the Holy One, we find the following somewhat obscure passage. As Metatron here stands in the context, it would most naturally be taken as a divine name on analogy with Zohariel, Yahweh, Lo, Eloi, Israel of foregoing chapters in the Hecaloprapai, and this so much the more easily as the letters preceding the Metatron in the first instance are the letters of the divine name. But against assuming Metatron here to be intended as a divine name, there is the epithet given to him in the second place, Abaed, YHUH, the servant of YHUH. This, which moreover is a traditional and well-established epithet of Metatron as a separate angelic being, cannot very well be considered part of a divine name. Two possible solutions to the problem presented by the text of this passage in its present form may be suggested. The word except may have been dropped by a copyist before the characters of both words being similar. This emendation would give the meaning no one is able to know thy works or to search thy wonderful doings, except Metatron who is called by 8 names, etc. Another possibility is that the Ibade YHUH after Metatron in the second instance is a later insertion, especially in view of the immediately following divine attributes, long-suffering and abundant in goodness, which it would seem could hardly have been attached to a servant of YHUH, not even to Metatron as a separate angelic being. One may venture to assume that the solution is the more plausible one, in favor of interpreting Metatron here as the name of a high angelic being, not as a divine name, is the parallel in wording of the second part of the passage with chapter 12 of our book, by reason of the love with which the Holy One loved me more than all the children of heaven, etc. Here, by reason of the love with which they love him on high, they call him in the camps of the holy ones. Metatron, the servant of YHUH, the long-suffering and abundant in goodness. It is noticeable that the conception of Metatron in is markedly sublimated as compared with Enoch. He possesses the divine names Aleph and Bet and the divine letters, etc. The words long-suffering and abundant in goodness possibly refer merely to the YHUH, not to Metatron. However, now in Enoch 40, Michael is called the merciful and long-suffering, also Coptic Apocalypse of Paul. When all those who were suffering punishments in hell saw Michael, and all the hosts of the angels, they wept and they said unto him, Have mercy upon us, O Archangel of the covenant, thou compassionate one who dost pray for mankind at all times. Is here already regarded as the central part of the name Metatron and as one of the symbols of the fact that he has the divine name within him in accordance with Exodus 23. Metatron is further in this passage represented as alone of all celestials, possessing knowledge of all God's works and his wonders, especially the secrets of creation, in perfect agreement with Enoch. He is said to have several names. Of these are important firstly, Sagiel, the occurrence of which here shows clearly how firmly this name was associated with that of Metatron in different sources, and secondly, Yehuel, the mention of Yehuel, which is the equivalent to the variant forms of Yaoel, Yaol, Yoel, Yahoel, occurring in other writings, as an essential name of Metatron, corroborates the identity between Metatron and Yaoel of the Apocalypse of Abraham, emphasized by G.H. Box in his edition of this work. The peculiar endowment shared by both Yaoel and Metatron is the possession of the divine ineffable name, and bound up with this, the function or position of God's vice-regent, second only to God himself. Metatron in relation to the Prince of the Presence, according to the Hecalopraba P. Metatron and the Prince of the Presence are viewed as two essentially distinct angelic figures. Moreover, whereas Metatron is contemplated as a being of extraordinarily high position, the Prince of the Presence, having been severed from Metatron, is in process of degradation. The Prince of the Presence, named Surya or Suriel, is the angel prince who gives Ismail disclosures as to the reasons for the divine decree concerning the 10 martyrs to be and informs him of the retribution reserved for the future. This part of the Hecaloprabapai is very closely related to martyrs. The name Surya, the prince of the presence, further occurs in a context describing the various constituent parts of the Ma'irkaba as a sort of highest figure of the Ma'irkaba, apart from the throne of glory, is mentioned. Surya, the prince of the presence, the servant of Tutrikiel, when compared with the chapter 22 on Anaphiel and chapter 26 on Metatron. This passage confirms the general impression given by Hector that the Prince of the Presence is only a secondary angel prince, surpassed not only by Metatron but by Anaphiel and the 7 or 15 angel princes under him. The servant of Totrikiel is equivalent to the servant of Metatron as a representative of the Godhead. Metatron, on the other hand, is the servant of YHUH. Between Metatron and the Prince of Presence is Anaphiel, who is called simply servant. Metatron, as being inherent in the divine name Alueth, is the notion that forms the starting point for the whole exposition of the Enoch Metatron piece. When pronouncing the divine name Alueth, see the enumeration of the divine names, the mystic was to concentrate his mind on Metatron, or rather on the interrelations between the Holy One and Metatron, which interrelations were summed up in the words Ibarchu, Lekauchu, Pekachu. The same is suggested by the presentation of Alueth as a name of Metatron here. G.H. Box, The Apocalypse of Abraham 10. If Metatron were to be regarded here as itself a divine name, this would have to be considered as an anticipation of the later explicit identification of Metatron with the Shekinah. Also in chapter 14, the subservience of the Prince of the Presence to Tutrusiel is emphasized. According to this passage, the man who wishes to immerse himself in the mystical Merkaba state is to conjure the Prince of the Presence by the power of the names of Tutrusi. According to the usual form of the magical invocations, a subordinate angel can be conjured by reciting the name or names of an angel in authority above him. In chapter 17, again, there are preserved some features of the earlier conception of the Prince of the Presence as being associated with Metatron, here suggested by the name Tutrusie, and having several names. The prince of the presence is expressly declared to be subordinate to Anaphiel, to the presence of the presence, to the prince of the presence. It is said here, only the angels outside the presence of the throne prostrate themselves, but before Anaphiel, all on high and below fall upon their faces, paying him homage. Anaphiel here fills the function of a delegate. The angel of the presence is represented as the attendant of the throne, the Merkaba angels, and the bywork of the Merkaba. This is the function assigned to Metatron. But whereas in Metatron is the attendant supervisor of the Merkaba angels, the angel of the presence, according to thus in Hekalop Brabapai, there are mentioned three celestial beings who fulfill the functions and occupy the positions that in three Enoch are combined and attached to Metatron. The three celestial beings are the angel or prince of the presence, who is the guide, protector, and informant of the Merkaba seer, the attendant of the throne, and the Merkaba. Anaphiel, who is the prince of the princess, and also to some extent the prince of the world, primarily from the cosmic aspect. Metatron, who is the bearer of the divine name or names, the sole angelic being in possession of the last secrets of the Godhead. The representative of the Godhead, whose manifestation on the throne is referred to by names that allude to the name Metatron. Tutrusiel, Tutrikiel, and Turos, this third celestial figure of the Hecaloparabapay, is on the higher stage of sublimation. It would seem that in Metatron in 3 Enoch, he is perhaps here at the beginning of the process in which he will eventually be identified with the Shekinah. Mas Archeop, Hekalop, in Mas Hek, there is no mention of Metatron nor indeed of any individual named Angel Prince with the exception of the four princes appointed over the four camps of song-uttering angels, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael presents a developed Merkaba picture on the basis of that Hekalop Rabapai. This absence of any reference to individuals, angel princes, with the said exception, is simply an accident due to the character of the subject matter of this writing. The legend of the Ten Martyrs, there seem to have been several works describing the mystical experiences of Ismael and hence closely related to 3 Enoch. One of these is the forenamed. Another work of the same kind seems to have treated of Ismael's last experiences during his earthly life. This work is now lost, but it has been used and embodied in the various quite late collections of popular legends of the Ten Martyrs who were put to death in the Hadrianic persecution. Ismael being one of the supposed 10 martyrs, the two versions coming into consideration here may, or for our present purpose, be referred to as like martyrs found in Martyrs. Martyrs, the prince of the princes, named Asuriel and Sagnisagiel, is here also the guide and informer of Ismael. Suriel is regarded as the characteristic name of the prince of the presence in agreement with Hek, Ar, and Tibi Berakub. 51a, which latter probably also belongs to one of the above named works on R. Ismael. The prince of the presence is essentially the guide of the Merkaba seer. Martyrs, this version seems to be dependent upon the conceptions of 3 Enoch, especially in its later additional parts. Metatron is here expressly identified with the Prince of the Presence. The following features may be recorded. Metatron is the Abide, the servant of the Holy One. Metatron hears the divine decree from behind the Pargo in the form of a loud utterance by the Baphual. The conception of Metatron as having a sanctuary and altar of his own on high is here beginning to emerge. Ismael beholds the celestial altar and asks Metatron about it. The spirits of the righteous we offer upon it before the Holy One is the answer, at which R. Ismael exclaims, "Now I have learned a thing the like of which I never heard before. Since the celestial altar was an old idea, the exclamation can only refer to the relation of Metatron and his subservient angels to the celestial altar and sanctuary. Metatron is made the exponent of the central thesis of the mystical doctrine. Everything below has its corresponding counterpart above as it is formulated here. Metatron is associated with Gabriel, Gabriel being his assistant and representative. Metatron seems here to be connected with Ismael in a more intimate manner than in Enoch or related works purporting to be the revelations committed to Ismael by Metatron. Metatron, according to leg martyrs, was present at the birth of Ismael, and the Holy One is said to praise Ismael before Metatron every day with the words, I have a servant, I abide on earth as thou art my abode on high. His splendor corresponds to thy splendor, and his appearance corresponds to thy appearance. This may be an expression of the Kabbalistic speculations which make R. Ismael one among the human carriers embodiments of the celestial essence, the divine spark, represented by Metatron, which human carriers are usually enumerated as the spirit of the first Adam, Enoch, the three patriarchs, Joseph, and Ismael. B. The conceptions of Metatron in the Hecalog, Zoteradi, and in the Shur Koma. The conceptions of Metatron met with in the works discussed in the preceding section show a development from the standpoint of Enoch towards the sublimation of Metatron and a concentration of the highest functions around this name with a consequent tendency of dissociating the less important ones from him and transferring them to the angelic figures such as the Prince of the Presence and Anaphiel, etc. This stage might perhaps, after the main sources, be called the Hecalop stage. Between this stage and the subsequent more subtle speculations on the Metatron ideas are to be placed the representations of the Siur Koma and the Hecalop Zootherapy. Siur Koma or Sapphire Hakyukoma, the Siur Koma as preserved in MSS and in S. Raziel consists of several fragments which for critical purposes must be indicated here, as preserved in R. Raziel. Doxology beginning Baruch Ata Yahu. The shortest and probably earliest in the seer expositions represented as the testimony by Metatron to R. Ismael as to the measures Si Urim of the manifestation of the throne, the piece Ameru Kol Hayode, Raz Zoe, Mubta Lo, etc. A new doxology to the Most High as King, a glorification to the Holy One beginning Lak Yahu Ha Gedula Yue Ha Jebura. This fragment is missing in some of the a longer version of the Seer exposition probably belonging to the earliest strata of the Seer Koma. Ismael is here represented as beholding with his own eyes the manifestation of the King of Kings, and while beholding the divine manifestation on the throne, being told by Metatron the measures and names of the various parts of the throne manifestation. A supplement to the preceding purporting to be given by a disciple, Ismael Napan on the authority of Ismael. Pronouncements by Kiba to Ismael and Kiba and Ismael in unison of the great value and importance of the secret embodied in Siur Koma. Supplementary additional expositions of the throne Merkaba picture. Middle continuation of the preceding but group found in conceptions of Metatron, hymns and doxologies of various kinds. Summary of the conceptions of Metatron in the Seer Koma. Metatron is the prince who reveals the secrets to R. Ismael, the angel, the prince of the presence, and the great prince, the witness, the great prince of testimony, Sarah Rabba, the testifier of the divine majesty and kingship. He has several other names beside Metatron. Some of these are formations by analogy from Metatron, quasi or nominal stems of the type Philon, Phialon, among them the Rua, Pisconid, Piscon, Itmon, Sigron. Metatron is the prince of the likeness of Adam. Example, the Adam Kadmon, the archetypal man in the divine image, the Godhead being named, the celestial choir master, the head of all heavenly beings who chant the Kedusa, is seated on the throne beneath the throne of glory. He is called the great prince over all the princes and over all the ministering angels. He is the celestial high priest of the heavenly tabernacle called after him Miskan Ha Naar, the tabernacle of the youth Metatron, recites the divine name in its universal aspect in 70 tongues. Hence is the prince of the world and the representative of the king of the world. As a heavenly choir master, celestial high priest, and also prince of the world Metatron is called youth, which here equals servant representative of the king of kings, king of kings of kings. Servant representative, the King of Kings of Kings. He is connected with Moses in accordance with the later traditional identification of the angel in Exodus 23 with Metatron. Metatron represents the first letter, Aleph, through which heaven and earth were created. Example, the fundamental creative essence. Hecalopsotherapy. The Hecalopsotherapy seems never to have been printed. The earliest MS source the present writer has been able to find is the Bodleian, following immediately on the Hecalop Rabbati and preceding fragments of the Seer Ukuma. The Hecalop Zotarabi, abbreviated Zot, contains several fragments mostly attributed to R. Ismael. Metatron here figures quite prominently. R. Ismael narrates how his teacher R. Nehonia Bain Haquana for the first time brought him into touch with the secret of the Torah and with the experience of the Merkabah state. R. Nehonia used the power of the Great Seal, which contains the name of Metatron, YHUH, the God of Israel, and which is the same Metatron, Yahoo, Yahoo, the God of heaven and earth, the God of the sea and the dry land. This expression seemingly implies that Metatron here is a divine name, but probably this is not the case. The right interpretation will rather be that Metatron, who of old is said to carry the divine name Yahoo, has this name also acquired that of Elohim, and the epithets mostly associated with it: Elohim, Israel, Elohe, Samayin, Ua, Aroes, etc. The use of the specific epithets here may furthermore indicate that Metatron is the representative of the Holy One, both in relation to Israel and in relation to the cosmos, Prince of the world. Metatron is clearly conceived as an angelic or celestial being, the Talmidei Hakam. Example, the initiated among them, when watching and praying on nights, are to recite the name of and invoke Sekad Huzi. At the same time, it is said that Sekad Huzi in reality is merely one of the various names of Metatron, who besides Sekad Huzi is called Mark Gaziel, Uzia, Ganuya, Sas Negaria, Surya, Zarzariel, Piskon, Itmon, Zigron, Sangadia, Zehaftaria, Zehodebia, Zebodia. Some of these names are those always associated with Metatron. Others are in other contexts given as divine names, and some are names of the Prince of the Presence, Surya, Margaziel, Zehaftaria, according to Hekalop Rabatai. The passage shows close affinity with the conceptions prevalent in Hekalop Rabapai, with the divine manifestation indicated by the name Zebodiel is associated Margaziel, that is Metatron, in whom are the letters of the divine name, and because of the love with which they love him on high, the princess of the host on high. Of our book, The Princess of the Host, the seven archangels call him Zut Hiel, the divine glory, the servant Ibaid of Yahoo, the God of Israel. Blessed be He, Yahoo, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness. Exodus 34. The latter part of the passage is in almost literal parallel to Hek R. The Holy One joins fellowship with man, even with a proselyte, provided he be clean from idolatry, bloodshed, and sometimes I make Metatron my servant, Abide. Join fellowship with him and with the disciple in the Torah. I cause him to join fellowship frequently. This passage is important. It shows Metatron as the vicarius of the deity, even as regards the divine presence with man, the divine immanence. The divine immanence is a pronounced idea in Hek R, where it is said that thou, O God, dwellest in the earth, heart of man. Metatron is especially connected with the divine name. He occupies a throne of glory. The thrones of Dan 7 are explained as referring to the divine throne and the throne of Metatron, whereas in Hek are some of the Metatron functions. Example, the less important ones are transferred to the Prince of the Presence and to Anaphiel in Hekzal. The angel prince, who is said to share the lesser functions of Metatron, is Sandalphon. In particular, the cosmic aspect of Metatron is here carried by Sandalphon. He is the alpha or simplest creative agency above Siur, point 14. The conceptions of Metatron in the writings associating Metatron particularly with Moses. The next stage in the development of the Metatron speculations is indicated by the appearance of a strong emphasis on the relation between Metatron and Moses. This relation between Metatron and Moses, which apart from TB Sound and Midrash passages is merely hinted at in the later additional part of Sior Koma, is nowhere found in the literature hitherto under consideration. Likewise, in Enoch, it does not occur in the main part of the book but only in the later additional pieces. With the appearance of the speculations on Metatron's particular relation to Moses, this idea or nexus of ideas has never subsided but can be attested all through the history of mystical and Kabbalistic literature up to the present day. Hasid writings. The works dealing with the subject in question are firstly the various versions of what may be called ascensions of Moses and revelations of Moses. Metatron announces himself to Moses as Enoch the son of Jared. He is the guide of Moses during his ascent through the heavens and instructs Jared. He is guide of Moses during his ascent through the heavens and instructs Moses about the wonders of the various Requiem. When proceeding from the seventh heaven to visit paradise and Gehenna, Moses is given over into the charge of Gabriel, who here, as in Martyrs, is represented as the assistant of Metatron. He can be entrusted with works or duties of Metatron which are, as it were, of a less exacting or responsible nature. Revelation of Moses. There are two recensions. One where Moses himself is introduced as the speaker, the other where he is spoken of in the third person. Of the former recensions, only fragments are preserved, and these in a very corrupt textual condition. Metatron is the judge of all the troops of angels on high. Further, he is the executor of the divine decrees. He is associated with Michael, Gabriel, Yephifa, the prince of the Torah. The latter recension, in a context given the narrative preserved also in the additional chapter, states that the Torah was given to Moses after his having forgotten it by the two princes Yefifia and Metatron. Yefifia is the instructor of Moses in the exoteric Torah. Metatron again is the revealer of the esoteric doctrines embodied in it, the secrets of the Torah. The names hidden in it, as the expression runs, the names are the divine names which constitute the essential secret of the Torah. A fragment of another ascension of Moses is found in the additional chapter 15 of our book. Here, Metatron is the intermediary between the Holy One and Moses and the supreme advocate of Moses and Israel. Metatron commits to Moses the letters of the oath through which a breaking of the covenant is made impossible. The letters in question are mystical, cosmic, essential letters which constitute the elements of the divine names of the Torah, of the abstract qualities sustaining the world, and the whole visible and invisible universe. The oath here seems to denote a sort of magical formula, almost an amulet, which would safeguard Moses against any transgression of the Torah, against bringing guiltiness upon himself. Secondly, to this stage should be assigned the so-called Sword of Moses, Harba de Mose. In the Sword of Moses, we meet with most of the angelic and divine names found in the Hecaloprabapai and Zoterapi, page Uphiel Metatron, who is called the Glory on High. Uphiel is the third name of Metatron. Metatron is one of the high angelic or celestial beings who help man in his quest for the highest. In the same context as are found the names Miktatron, Jehuel, and Naphiel. As the other writings belonging to this stage, the Sword of Moses reflects the traditions of Enoch and is probably partly dependent on this book. Thus, Metatron is the prince of the presence, the youth, na our servant, albeit before the King of the world. He is the mightiest of all the heavenly household. He is ever standing ministering before the King of the world, and the Shekinah is with him in every place. Metatron, the prince of the presence, it is further stated, comes down to earth and reveals the secrets of above and below to the initiate who invokes him. The attempt to meet the prince of the presence is preceded by ascetic practices, fasts, ablutions. Metatron has 14 names and a number of kinuyim. For each of these 14 names, the 14 names in question are first of all much repeated. Rawa, Piskunip, Itmon, Piskun, Sigrun, which are found in TB South. Further, MSY, Mikwon, Astam, Saktam, Yeuel, Yophiel, Sakniel, Ya, Kankiel, Ya, Zebudiel, Senegron. In terms reminding of Enoch and 41, it is asserted by these 14 all secrets and mysteries and all signs and seals were made, and also foundations of heavens and earth. Four of them are written on the heads of Hayuk, four of them on each of the four sides of the throne, four of them on the four crowns upon the heads of the Ophanim, and two of them are graven on the crown of the Supreme King, the high and lifted up. Thus, Metatron is in the sword of Moses, emphasizes the knower, guardian, and revealer of the secrets as the prince of the world, with cosmic power as the prince of the presence, the prince of the throne, and of the Merkaba angels, and lastly as the bearer of the Sakina. Metatron in alphabet or of R. Akiba, revelations of R. Simeon ben Yohai. In the alphabet of R. Akiba, Rect A, there is no consistent or uniform representation of Metatron, as would be expected also, seeing that this work is merely a collection of scattered fragments from different sources and times. Letter Aleph, Metatron is the elevated Enoch, the son of Yared or Jared. He is the prince or head of the Merkaba angels and by implication of all the angelic beings. His function of principal witness and testifier is alluded to. Letter Kaf, Metatron is the prince of the presence, the Aibide, and brings the congregation of Israel before the Holy One. Letter Sade, because Moses humbled himself and said, I am of uncircumcised lips, he is worthy of becoming a messenger between the divine majesty and Israel, Gebura, as it is written Deuteronomy 5. I, Moses, stood between the Lord and you, whereas not even Metatron is able to stand between the divine majesty and men of flesh and blood. Metatron, although evidently known as an angel of exceptional position, is here explicitly declared not to be a mediator between man and God, not even a messenger. This is, of course, in glaring contrast to the representations of the preceding writings. The impression given by alphabet of R. Akiba, so far as the conceptions of Metatron are concerned, is that this compilation as a whole is not interested in the specifically mystical implications or import of the Metatron figure, but is familiar with the general expressions and terms of the mystical literature and uses the conceptions current there for its own purpose, which is of a more homiletical and Haggadic character. Already, from a comparison of the passages just quoted, the impossibility is apparent of regarding the Enoch Metatron piece as originating from alphabet of Akiba, or even as having from the beginning formed part of it. Revelations of R. Simeon ben Yohai. Metatron is the prince of the presence, has knowledge of the divine decrees and the reasons behind them and reveals them to the seer. This is further elaborated to in Tefillah, R. Simon ben Yohai. Similarly, into Ab Ismael, Agadap, R. Ismael, see sources and literature. Metatron, as the prince of the presence, is the informer of R. Ismael as to the future events. The coming messianic salvation will be prepared by the wars between the Islamitic and Roman powers. Islamitic and Roman powers. These two apocalypses, which must date from the end of the 7th or the beginning of the 8th century, are remodelings upon the pattern of the earlier apocalypses, especially angelological fragment. There appear a few quotations from Masai Kayep Hekalop, which, however, have nothing to do with Masai Kalop Hekalop known to us. The fragment enumerates various high angel princes as performers of different parts of the heavenly liturgy or as singing the various songs with different intents. The quotations are interesting insofar as they show the angelic names in the earlier literature regarded as names of Metatron here being conferred on separate angel princes forming the companions or associates of Metatron. Metatron is here the chief of the angel princes who utter the Sema. With him are Imiel, Yophiel, Apiel, Sodia, Surtak, Aniel, Piskun, Itmon, Sigrun, Pastam, Pasim. The fragment reflects the conception of Enoch as regards the chanting of the celestial Sema, and Metatron's function as supervisor of the performance of the celestial songs. This is also closely connected with the Moses Metatron traditions. In the various versions, Midrash Petirap Moshe Metatron called Zagni Zagiel, and the Prince of the World is the teacher of Moses during his lifetime and accompanied by Michael and Gabriel, takes care of Moses' spirit Nasama at his death. These writings, of course, build upon the earlier Moses Metatron literature referred to under C above. According to the Chronicles of Jeremiel, Metatron is able on God's commission to throw down the Egyptian wizards Johanai and Mamre from heaven, whether they had been able to ascend through their knowledge of witchcraft, whereas Michael and Gabriel were unable to do anything against them. Here, Metatron is Gabriel, is clearly conceived of as mightier than the old archangels and princes, Michael and Gabriel. In the Aramaic incantation text from Nippur, Montgomery, the following passage occurs: Blessed are thou, Yahoo, on account of the name of Yophiel, thy name Jehiel, they call thee Sasangiel, Yahoo, and so names. Apart from the comparison that prompts itself between the names here associated with Metatron and of our book, the importance of the inscription cited consists in its apparent identification of Metatron with Hermes, Armasa, an interesting and convincing interpretation by Professor Montgomery. Hermes. It may be noted, by the way, that the name here is only another of the many different forms and corruptions of Sagnisagia. As will have been seen, there are, after the Hecalop stage, very few new developments of the Metatron ideas, at least as far can be seen from the writings preserved. In fact, only the speculations on Metatron's connection with Moses and revelations given to him and with the celestial Sema are actual traditions. The bareness in new ideas continues for a considerable time. The mystical writings contain reiterated references to Metatron, but these simply reflect the earlier traditions. The speculations on Metatron, however, received a new impetus with the rise of the Kabbalah in its narrower sense. Now the earlier conceptions were taken up and given a deep significance. In many cases, it would seem that representations in the Kabbalistic literature go back to very early Gnostic ideas, perhaps preserved in earlier writings now lost. In other cases, again, the late medieval origin is apparent. To illustrate the Kabbalistic use of Metatron figure, it may be opposite here to give a short methodical survey of characteristic references found in this kind of literature. Survey of the conceptions of Metatron in later mystical literature. Metatron, the enthroned vice-regent of the Holy One, the technical term is Mesneila Mailai. He is enthroned because of the great love of his master. Metatron has authority to be seated on the throne like the throne of glory. The Holy One made him the ruler over his celestial and terrestrial household. Kabbalah, in addition, he is endowed with all the middle, little less than God. Example probably refers to him, thou hast made him a little lower than Elohim. Yalkut Hadas Malakim. He represents the Godhead to the outside celestial and terrestrial world. Pardes Rimunium. The epithets Naar and Zekan Bepu are especially used to denote Metatron as the vice-regent Zohar, as Metatron is surrounded by the 70 princes below. In the same capacity, he is attendant of the throne of glory. In the end of time, Metatron will make the throne of glory complete as a throne of judgment. Now it is carried only by 3 Hayuk, but then it will rest on the 4 Hayuk. The divine kingdom will be complete. Metatron, God's representative and ruler in the celestial world. Over all the angels and through all the celestial regions, he is the chieftain of all angels and princes. His commonplace expression, Zohar. An important idea is here. Metatron gives maintenance to all the angels, Zohar. This spiritual maintenance is allegorically expressed by the terms rain and mana. Rain and mana. All the angels receive their spiritual maintenance, yea, their very existence from Metatron. He is to the angelic world what the heart is to the body. Partes ceremoniae. Metatron admonishes the angels to bath and purify themselves in the Nehar de Nur every third day. Metatron has access to the 955 heavens, the inscrutable abode of Godhead, according to other traditions. However, only 900 of these are accessible to Metatron, the remaining being reserved for the deity alone. Special classes of angels under Metatron's authority, in particular the 72 princes of kingdoms. These are called the youth's servants. They stand in the same relation to Naar, youth Metatron, as the Naar to the Holy One, Tikkunim. They are the angelic rulers over the world, hence figure prominently, especially in the context stressing Metatron's function of prince of the world, Zohar below. But they also represent the different aspects of the divine manifestation and its activities, and in this connection, they are identified with 72 divine names. These aspects are united in Metatron, the ruler of the 72 angels and possessor of the 72 names which are called divine powers. Metatron is appointed over the 12 angels of God, Zohar, over the Merkabah angels, Zohar, over Michael and Gabriel, over the four princes, over the angels of judgment, over the angels of the world. Metatron is the guardian of the inmost region of the Shekinah, the Holy of Holies against Kiliv. Metatron is the guardian of the celestial treasuries and the holes. He is especially appointed over the secrets. Metatron is set over the holes and all their splendors. Zohar. All the keys are committed to him. Zohar. The possession of the keys is symbolical of, of Metatron's possession of all the divine secrets. Metatron commits the secrets to man and to the spirits in heaven. The secrets include the mysteries of the Torah, and hence Metatron is called the Prince of the Torah. He gave the terrestrial Torah to Moses, was Moses' teacher. Siuni, Metatron teaches the Torah and its mysteries in heaven, and is the president of the Heavenly Academy. He propounds halakot in the Heavenly Academy. He is the prince not only of the Torah but also of the whole classical Talmudic, Midrashic, and Kabbalistic literature. Following emanates in the last instance all knowledge of the mysteries of the universe. Metatron is the guardian of the spirits and souls in heaven, both before and after their earthly life. He is appointed to give life to those who are to dwell in the dust. The spirits who are about to enter the life on earth. Zohar. He assigns a star for the newborn to enlighten his nesama, the spirit during his life on earth. After death, he conducts the spirits and souls back to their places. He introduces the nesama spirit on high, saying to it, enter, enter, Zohar Hadas. Metatron is the chieftain of the angels, Gabriel for the righteous or for Israel, and Samael for the wicked or those outside Israel, who fetch the spirits from on earth by authority of Metatron, their leader. He is actually called the angel of death. Metatron has here taken over functions of all associated with the name of Michael. Metatron, God's representative over the world, prince of the world, celestial judge of the world, executor of the divine decrees, the representative of the Holy One to the individual, the protector, intercessor, intermediary, and advocate. In his capacity of ruler of the world, Metatron is usually associated with the 72 princes of kingdoms, representing the different nations of the world. Metatron, the prince of the world, is the ruler over the princes of the nations. Metatron, not the Holy One, is the ruler of the nations, but Israel has the Holy One himself for its ruler. Metatron is the Memune over all the nations, and he understands their language. He gives maintenance to the world through the 72 princes Zohar. He is the of the world comprehensive unity. All the Sephirot clothe themselves in Metatron in order to work through him in the world. The Malkut, the 10th, Sephira, representing the unity of the universe, rests in Metatron. Pardes ceremony. Metatron is the judge of the world. As judge, he is the head of the celestial, for he gives judgments and decisions in respect of all. Zohar. Judgment is taken in the wide sense of general government as well as forensic judgment. He unites in himself the two attributes of justice and mercy. He is the head of the two groups of angels, the angels of justice under Asa and the angels of mercy under Uziel. Metatron is called Sarhapanim for he was two panim faces, justice and mercy. He is of course the judge also of man after his death and functions at the last judgment. He is the guardian of the strict fulfillment of the statutes of the Torah. He has been entrusted with 613 keys, 613 the number of the statutes of the law. 613. 613. Note outside the celestial dean, example when not contemplated in its function of judge, Metatron is always associated with the attribute of mercy below. Metatron is the representative of the Holy One to individual men. It was Metatron who showed himself to Moses and to the prophets, for did not show himself to any man. When the Holy One chose a prophet and destined him to partake of the Shekinah, it was Metatron who bestowed upon the prophet of the light of Shekinah. When the Dibor, the divine word, came to the prophet, it was Metatron who spoke to him through pop call. Metatron receives man's prayers. Metatron protects man against evil, against and the kill of. Metatron is the shield of man. If only he remembers Metatron when in danger, one will be delivered and rescued. Metatron is the intercessor, intermediary, and advocate. He is called Senegron to denote him as an advocate. He is the Senegor for Israel, and when Satan tries to accuse Israel on high, Metatron makes him confused so that he is unable to bring forth his accusation. He records the merits of Israel and seals the records. When the wrath of the Holy One is kindled against his children, then Metatron prays for them and transforms the Medaphadim into Medaphamrahim, causes the divine decrees to be determined by the attribute of mercy instead of the attribute of justice. Metatron is appointed to receive man's prayers. The way of the prayer is from man's heart of the Hasmal, from the Hasmal to Metatron. By Metatron, it is both behind the Pargo before the throne of glory. Megalie, Amukwop. In this aspect, Metatron is frequently associated with Sandalphon and Capriel. Gabriel receives the morning prayer, Metatron the afternoon prayer, and Sandalphon the evening prayer. Megali. Metatron is called Sigron when shutting the doors through which the prayers are admitted into the celestial abodes. Pihon when opening them. Tikone ha Zohar Tikon. Like Zandalphon, Metatron binds crowns for his master of man's prayers. Zohar. According to some, men should pray not the unmanifested deity, but to Metatron, for Metatron is appointed over this world. Israel prays to the Holy One and to Metatron. States Metatron receives special names and appellations indicating his high position. He is called the divine names Yahoo, Elohim, Sadai, is called Nahar, Ulema, Zaken, Zekan, Bepu, Saba, Devdepa, Steward, the eldest servant of his house, the prince of the world, the prince of the presence, is identified with the angel of Yahoo in Yehuel, etc., and has numerous names. The expression whose name is like the name of his master, with reference to Metatron, seems to have been associated with the conception of Metatron from its very origin. Metatron was called the Lesser Yahoo to denote him as vice regent and second throne, when Metatron was identified with the angel of Yahoo and with Yehuel, or as a cause of this, the appellation in question found its scriptural support in Exodus 23, "For my name is in him." And very much later, even a series of geometrical supports were invented, of which the most well-known is that which points to the equal numerical value, the theory propounded lately by Moore in Harv Theol Revelation, that the expression was derived from the original identity of Michael and Metatron. Metatron being merely an appellative use of Michael is inadmissible since the expression is not used with regard to Michael, whereas it is inseparably bound up with the name of Metatron. The connection between Yehuel of up, and Metatron on this point, contended by box CF below, is on the other hand confirmed by earlier as well as later mystical literature. Metatron is very frequently called the Lesser Yahoo, for he possesses the divine letters which are divine powers, by which he performs everything. This is said to be Metatron's real name. He is called simply Yahoo and also Elohim Sadai. In his rulership over the world, he bears the divine name Sadai, but when ascending on high, he bears name of his master Yahu Zohar. He is called Yah and Sadai. Metatron is called Yahu and Elohim, Haye, Saer, Haye, Donai, and has many other names. The 70 divine names are also names of Metatron. The appellation Na'ar occurs almost as frequently as the name Metatron itself. In later Kabbalistic literature, it is exactly synonymous with Metatron, hence it does not as a rule denote any special function or office of Metatron. Various functions of Metatron are in various contexts linked with the epithet of Na'ar. He is called Na'ar because he performs the service of a Na'ar before Sekina Pardes Ceremony. He is called Na'ar for he is the prince of the world, who said, I have been Na'ar youth and now I am old. Zohar, contested by the Tosapists. The Aramaic equivalent is Ulema Zohar, used especially to denote Metatron as the manifestation of the Shekinah. The quotation from Psalm 37 is made the basis for the connection of the appellation Na'ar with that of Zaken. The Zaken is most often used in the sense of steward, the eldest servant of his house, alluding to Genesis 24. Metatron rules over all that the Holy One has. The appellation Pater noster qui es in celis sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum de nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debetas sicut et nos debitemus debitoribus nostres, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo.